Okay. All right. It is 6:10 and we are just gonna go for it. Let me get Okay. Hello everyone. Again, sorry for the technical difficulties. Probably everyone who's here already knows who I am. But if you don't, I'm the author of The Birthday Picture and Other Stories and also the founder of Red Sweater Press, on which you are watching this. Brenda's here. Hello, Brenda. And Briana, I would like to introduce to you all by reading her lovely bio in the book. Briana Bloom obtained a bachelor's degree in studio art with a minor in peace studies from Gustavus Adolphus College. Her favorite mediums are acrylic and watercolor for painting and permanent markers for drawing. Briana has had her art shown in multiple gallery openings and won Best in Show for the 2017 Maple Grove Arts Center Halloween Art Contest. She lives in Anoka, Minnesota with her 2 cats, and now she is here with us. Hooray! I didn't even ask. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm kind of nervous because I don't think I've ever been interviewed before, actually.
Oh
But
man.
it's okay. Everything's fine. I'm excited.
Exactly. I am also excited, and I see my
Yeah.
friend Heidi is here. Hooray. More people showing up. Um, let's see. So, yes, before we get to the readings, orders are open. So if you guys want to go ahead and order the book right now, you can go to redsweaterpress.com/store, as it should say on your screen, to do that. And I'm only taking PayPal through the website right now, so if you don't have that or a way to connect that, you can also get it on Amazon. There are Kindle and paperback versions available on Amazon. And then if you're local, you can get them at Black Birch Books starting this Saturday, which I'll talk more about later. The other thing is people who are buying books today from the Red Sweater Press site, the first person to make a purchase gets their choice of one of these lovely mugs that I had made. So you can have your choice of the latte mug. Ooh, my blur is kind of messing with that. Or the regular kind of coffee mug. They both say Red Sweater Press and have the logo on them. So first person to order through the site gets one of those, and then the other one will go to the first person to buy a book on Saturday. So I will be checking orders to make sure those are coming through. And you also get a handy little water bottle sticker for buying books today. And, well, basically until I run out, honestly. I've got 50 of them or so. And first 5 orders also get free shipping. So what you can do is you can order through the website and I can refund you the shipping price, or you can just hit local pickup even if you're not local, and I will be able to see who came in what order so I can see who actually should get free shipping. And other than that, there should be a place to specify whether you want the book signed. Unfortunately, I don't have Bree's signature on those, but if you live in Minnesota, you can hit her up and maybe get it from her, or maybe
Yep.
they can mail you the book with postage, and you could send it back. I don't know. Some people do that, but anyway, we have belabored long enough, I think, so I'm gonna start reading from the first story, and then we'll talk for a little bit and go from there. So, get a drink here. And actually, how's everybody else doing? You guys that are here in the chat, thank you so much for coming, and feel free to leave comments or questions in there, and we'll get to them as we can. So, the first story I'm going to read is the first story in the book, and it's called Gulfoss. And let me know how the volume is, because I tend to read quiet. So, Arliss stood on a rocky precipice above the abyss, the gelid white falls roaring beside him. He took a deep breath and coughed, the frigid air irritating his lungs. The weather was unseasonably cold, barely above freezing, in mid-September, and in direct correlation, he believed, to the disastrous event of that afternoon. Reykjavik, he recalled. Difficult to spell, but exotically romantic, his sister had said. The holiday had been her suggestion, a much-needed icebreaker, she said, for his stagnant relationship. Arliss and Kimmy had been together 4.5 years, the last 3 months of which had been particularly dull. In June she had unkindly explained to him what a drain he had been on her life, and that, if he had any mind to marry her, he ought to propose right then and there. They were at a cocktail party in London, hosted by Kimmy's employer. "All right, then," he had said, and walked out of the room. It was dark now, the air colder and the thundering waterfall, Arliss imagined, quieter. Perhaps he had simply become accustomed to its voice. Arliss took another deep breath and looked up at the stars. He was reminded of the diamond in his coat pocket, removed it, and studied it against the sky. The morning after the party, Kimmy had begged Arliss not to leave her, saying she had been wrong to give him an ultimatum. But the apology did not repair the relationship, and the couple grew distant as the weeks wore on. When Arliss announced that he had purchased tickets to Iceland, Kimmy responded with angry practicalities. "How could you be so stupid, Arliss? We could have used that money. I can't just leave, Arliss. What about my job?" But gradually the luxury of such a trip began to appeal to Kimmy, and her affection for Arliss soared as the day drew near. Beside the waterfall, Arliss slipped and fell on his bottom, barely avoiding a long drop to the rocky pool below. His body had grown weary from standing, and he found himself grateful for the seat. He looked at the diamond once more, then threw it into the gulf. When the moment had come, with Kimmy looking out over the falls, the sun setting on her blonde hair, a powerful morbidity came over Arliss. He put a hand on Kimmy's shoulder, gaining her attention, and smiled. She smiled back. And then he pushed her. She was too shocked, he imagined, to have screamed, and fell silently into the deep, narrow canyon. The wind on the cliffs picked up, and Arliss shuddered. He stood, blew on his hands, and shook them for warmth. Facing the cascading reality of his crime, he closed his eyes and let the ground give way beneath him. Perhaps he did want to be with her, after all. And I'll even show you the picture! Thank you. Let's see, can we get it to focus? I don't know if I can. Probably should have thought of that with the blur. But anyway, if you buy the book, then you can see the illustrations even clearer. And I guess I
Exactly.
should show the front of it. You guys can see it on the screen as far as the overlay there. Man, I must have to put it like right next to my face. It is my face. Maybe that works. I don't know. We'll work on it. Work in progress. Everything's a work in progress. That story, actually, fun fact for people, was something that got an honorable mention in the Alaska Writers Guild contest before I was a board member there. So that's fun. And that's also on the blog at katebucksbaum.com. But let's hear from Bree with a couple questions about all the things. So we know a little bit about your artistic background since I read the bio, and hopefully people caught that. But what can you tell us about what you do in addition to art?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm a toddler teacher. I love my job, and I know I have some families and parents of my little toddlers are watching. So just want to say thank you to my friends and family that are watching. I do yoga. I just taught my first yoga class 2 weeks ago.
Hooray.
Yeah, I love yoga so much. I also do jazzercise in Maple Grove. I'm a mom to two cats. I have two cats, Boots and Mr. Mittens, and they keep me busy at home. They can be a handful,
I believe it.
as
And
Boots is about to knock over
I was
my
going to say, I
right
assume we will
now.
see more appearances from them.
Yeah, I think so.
Who doesn't
Um,
love cats? And
yeah,
videos. Cat videos.
seriously. I also am a Reiki healer. So Reiki is a Japanese form of energy healing, which is pretty much sending healing energy through my hands to promote ultimate relaxation for a person. Um, and a fun fact, I'm vegetarian.
All right.
Yeah,
Cool beans. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I feel like both of us are kind of doing a lot of uh, odd jobs at once right
yeah,
now,
yeah.
but all good stuff. So, hooray. All right. Well, jumping right into the next question. When did
Mhm.
you first consider yourself an artist?
Um, so think I would say I first considered myself an artist when I won my first art contest. So that's way after I graduated college, even.
Oh.
Um, yeah, yeah. I have, I think it's called imposter syndrome. And so I have really low self confidence about my artwork. And I create art for myself, not really for the purpose of others to see for the most part. And so I'm really self conscious putting my art out. And so that was probably the first time that I did since I graduated college. It was a Halloween themed art contest in Maple Grove, and there were so many talented artists there. There was multimedia artists. Someone made a dollhouse into a haunted mansion. Like there was some intricate art up there. And so I was just doing it for funsies, just get my name out there. And they called my name for best in show, first place best in show. It's very humbling, and it just made me realize that people do want to see my art, and that I should share my art with other people. So yeah,
Well, that's awesome, and that's kind of crazy to me because I
yeah,
think, like, especially if you watch podcasts, well, on YouTube, so it's kind of a podcast, but with poets and writers, you see that a lot in, and maybe
yeah,
it's just artistic communities in general. But I mean, to major in art
I
and still
know,
not be able to
I know.
tell your like accept that of yourself, like, oh, but
Yeah,
now we do get to share it with people, which is awesome.
yeah,
And I think I kind of, because you brought some things up in that
yeah.
response, I want to skip around a bit and ask, so what was the most challenging part of this project for you?
Um, the most challenging part for me was again just doubting myself, and I would get in my head about even starting out doing the drawings, that I would tell myself I'm not good enough, that it's not gonna be good enough. How I picture it and how you picture it in your head, they're not gonna align. And I was just like mentally working myself up that I wasn't good enough to illustrate a book in order to start actually creating the
Mhm.
illustrations. So I'd procrastinate until like a few weeks before they were due. And then I had to do all of them at one time. But it's fine. It all
Mhm.
worked out, and
Exactly.
it's better than I imagined. And I'm so proud of myself. And like, this is artwork that I'm so proud of that I made. So, yeah.
Yay, good. I'm glad to hear that. And I think, um, just for other people for some perspective, Red Sweater Press is pretty new, and this project I did with Bree is my first time like working with another person to publish something. And so, both of us were kind of new and not sure what to expect, and I think,
Yeah.
everything turned out really well. And I had prepared myself, in doing research about working with an illustrator. Something that some people, issues they would run into is what I heard, is that, that mismatch of expectations.
Yeah.
But no, like I said, I mean, I had already seen your style, and so I knew
Mhm.
that, whatever you came up with, it would work out, and it did. So yay!
Yeah.
And hopefully, everyone else will appreciate them all too.
Yeah.
Um, and I think on that note, I will go ahead and read another story. And if anybody has any questions, put them in the chat and we can address those next. And they can be about anything. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be about writing or drawing. All right, so the next one is called Fulfillment. It's another shorter one. So, and we are going to run over today, guys. I think, probably 7:15 since we got a late start. I'm going to try to read all the selections I planned. But this one, like I said, is a bit shorter, so we'll go ahead and read the whole thing. Fulfillment. Where's my cannoli? A little voice behind me says. I turn to see a young boy of maybe 6, dirty blonde hair falling about his eyes as his head swivels, searching for his missing treat. His sister stands smirking beside him, sticky fingers gripping the Italian sweet behind her back. Their mother scolds them for being noisy as she tries to talk to the woman seated next to her. Some days they're little monsters, aren't they? Says the woman, sipping a frothy latte. I wonder if she has children of her own. The mother smiles tiredly, returning to her adult conversation. I watch the children racing around the table next to me. Give it back, Nina, the boy yells, having discovered his cannoli's captor. The girl, a brighter blonde, maybe a year older, sticks her tongue out at the boy. She makes to take a bite out of her stolen goodie, when a larger hand snatches it away. You already had one, Nina, the mother says. Let Jessie have his. I smile, then slip out of the way as another patron walks past me. I instinctively offer my excuses, though he doesn't hear me. The women are talking again, the mother's back to her children. Jessie quietly munches on his prize, deserved, kicking his legs back and forth as he sits. Nina has resorted to making art, rubbing her nubs of crayon on the page of a coloring book. I take a seat closer to them, observing the somewhat jerky movements of childhood, creative and energetic efforts expended in their separate, haphazard ways. I feel eyes on me, turn around to see a man looking my way. But it is not me he sees. It is the mother of these children, the faces of the boy and girl. I'm wondering who should feel more embarrassed at being caught, him or I, when the woman turns around to check on her offspring. She's not concerned by what she sees, and I am glad. It has been so long since I have enjoyed the presence of youth, all too absent in my life. Years, I think, since I have dared to be so near to it, this young vivacity, in a public place. I can't imagine what that must have been like, I hear the mother say, and for a moment I think she is talking to me, can read my thoughts, even. It is only when I look up and see the other woman's face, daring to crumple with the weight of loss from long ago, distant, yet permanently painful, that I realize my mistake. Miraculously, she manages a smile, gazes at Nina and Jessie. I thought it broke me, she says, but it only cracked my shell. Expanded my capacity for love, Richard says, as I filled in the gaps. How? The mother of Nina and Jessie asks, uncomprehending. How did you fill them? The lonely woman, tall and dark, looks at the children again, now coloring in a jungle scene together. I feel strangely protective of them, wanting to tell her they do not belong to her. But they do not belong to me either, and I'm sad for the both of us. Another customer comes by and nearly sits on me before I am able to move away. As I stand, I see Jessie and Nina's mother smile on her children. Jessie and Nina? She asks her friend, surprise, and maybe fear, I imagine, coloring her voice. The wistful smile of the tall, dark woman disappears in shame, I think, as the distracted mother faces her again. Through all children, I suppose, she answers in a low voice. They give me life. Her eyes are full of tears as they rise to meet the other mothers. Oh, Leah, is the consolation, with the squeeze of a hand. I'm so glad. The implication, I note, which Leah accepts, is that her friend is glad her children bring Leah joy. But that is not what I hear. I have been Leah, and I have met this other woman, the woman who thinks, I'm so glad I'm not in your shoes. I boil uncouthly with anger, wanting to scoop Jessie and Nina up for myself, to follow Leah home and drop them at her doorstep, say, take them. They're yours. You deserve them. Of course, I cannot do any of this. Maybe I might have, had I known what I know now. Had I met Leah in another life and colluded with her to abduct love for the both of us. But as the cafe fills, as this small party I have spied on gathers their things, more people pass by me and through me, reminding me of my place. I am a vapor. I have lived and died already, no longer capable of touch. I drift out the door, steal one more unseen glance at these two children who have brought Leah so much joy, and whose mother cannot fully fathom the gift she has been given. The women say their goodbyes, and while Nina hoists herself into her mother's vehicle, Jessie stops and stares. At me. I look behind and around me, but there is no one on the sidewalk, save us. I stare back. I smile, and he smiles, then climbs into the car next to his sister. I wave as they drive past, but Jesse is already occupied by another facet of his reality, and I wonder if he actually saw me at all. My eyes fall on Leah now, sitting in her car, weeping with memory. I slip into the seat next to her, whisper in her ear, "You are loved. You are special. You are known." Her chin rises and she blinks away the tears. As her head turns about, searching for my voice, I am pulled from the scene into the black, the white, the end. And I'll show that picture again, or try to, if people can see that. If I put it in front of my face.
There.
Oh, it was there
Almost.
for a second.
There it is. There it
It's
is.
the most ridiculous way of doing it. All right. I see people, comments coming in now because, of course, the delay. So we'll come back
Yeah.
to that. I feel like I was going to say something about that story, but now I don't remember. Okay. Looks like we've got some orders coming in. So let me see who my free shipping people are. Okay. So we got, looks like Jimmy and Lisa. Thank you guys. And that is something else. Too many emails. And I got that one this morning. Cool. All right. Thanks, guys. Questions. As soon as oh, too many windows, as per usual. Okay. So, interesting. So, my Uncle Roger was wondering if imposter syndrome is a term that you made up, which, as we both know, it's not, actually. But says sounds like something that might apply to many of us in a lot of different contexts. So, yeah, that's, like I said, true. I think all creatives at some point experience it. And it's a bummer, but also, I don't know, it's still, I think maybe this is too optimistic, but maybe sometimes that feeling of inadequacy pushes us to be better, and practice our craft more.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, now I see that my friend Jim responded to him. So, okay, so Jimmy, not to be confused with Jim, asked me if I thought of myself more of a short story writer or poet, which is funny because I can tell who met me at which point in my writing career because most people that are like just finding out that I wrote books, or people I met in the last few years, think that poetry is like my main thing, and while it has been, it was not the first thing that I did. Growing up and all through college, I was like, I'm going to be a novelist, end of story. And while I have written some, none of them are published, and I don't know when they will be published, but they exist. And so it's hard to say. Definitely over the last few years, I've felt more strongly a poet, but like I said in a recent interview, I'm working on a screenplay also, and I really I'm trying to get back to fiction. I did have 2 other stories published this year in online magazines that are not in the book. So I don't know. Is the is the short and long answer for that? I don't know which one I consider myself more of. But fiction has been around longer for me. And that's Lakshman was asking about that too. What inspired me to write fiction? So another thing about this collection is that I mentioned that Gulfoss, the first story I read, was something more recent. Well, the award was recent. But Sunday the story I just read was first published in one of these Z Publishing anthologies. I think it was this one, the Yep, and it's the first story in this book, which I don't even know if you can get this anymore, but it was on Amazon. And so this came out 2 years ago. But actually, three of the stories in here, which I'm not going to read, actually, were published in Firethorn, our journal at Gustavus. And so those are, you know, geez, like 8 years old now.
That's crazy.
um, the only really new ones, Goldfoss is fairly new. For All We Know and Coming Home. Well, Coming Home is also in a publishing anthology, the young adult one from 2019, and then and that one I started writing at Gustavus, but it's been through several revisions. And then what else did we have? Oh, For All We Know, so ended up in this suspense slash mystery anthology, which I don't know if that's exactly the best place for it, but um, that one again was written, I think probably started near the end of college and was finished later. So the only ones that were written in the last. Oh, and the birthday picture. Actually, I should mention
Yeah.
that. So that one started as a much shorter piece um, in my writing fiction class, and the professor thought there were too many characters, which, and I had some comments like, "Oh, you should make this into a novella." And so that's the longest story. I think it started out, I want to say like 3 or 4 thousand words, and now it's like 8,000 words. So it's not quite novella length, but um, hopefully I gave the characters a little bit more room to breathe there. But we'll get to that one at the end. Saving that one for the end. Um, so yeah, 3 out of the 9 stories are newer, but um, it's all been poetry and fiction's all been mixed in there for a long time. Um, okay, I'm gonna get to Brenda's question, I think, after I hear a little more from you.
Mhm.
So, what did I want to ask you? What other experiences do you think shaped you as an artist? So not just um, what you've mentioned so far, but other things too.
Yeah. So it brought up that I paint mostly for myself. Painting and drawing is like a cathartic outlet for me and how I express myself, even if I'm not intending it to, if that makes sense. Um, and then I would say what else has shaped me as an artist is going through depression and having anxiety. I had pretty severe depression a few years ago, and drawing and painting was the pretty much the only way that I felt like I could express myself um, and get my emotions onto something physical and tangible. Instead of just keeping it inside, I felt like no one was relating to me, or no one really understood what I was going through. But when I create something, I feel like a part of me is on the paper or on the canvas. Um, and then also, I think through my artwork, always persevering, pushing through, trying to finish. I get that determination and grit from my late grandma who passed away a few years ago as well. And I always try to honor my loved ones through my art as well as myself.
That's awesome, and thank you so much for saying that because that reminded me to let people know that this book is actually dedicated to my uncle Jeff, who died a
Mm-hmm.
few months ago, and I had not when I had prepped this book for publication, I didn't know who I was going to dedicate it to. I felt like
Mm-hmm.
I should because it was my first book of fiction. And it's not like he was any big reader or anything, but I'm glad that I got to do that and that he got to see it.
Yeah.
Um, you know, even if he didn't get to read it, he at least got to see it. But yeah, as far as the Oh, there's a lot to unpack in that.
Sorry.
But no, don't apologize. Like,
It's been a
it's
lot.
great. But I was just thinking about like when you're talking about depression,
Mhm,
again, I think that's unfortunately a common thing that creatives go through. But I remember telling a student last year who was taking a poetry class for the first time, and she was, you know, not exactly understanding. She's like, I don't know how to write poetry. Um, and then for her to realize, like, I told her, it's like, well, oftentimes, like, because she had also told me about some personal experiences she'd been going through, and with her family, and I said, oftentimes, like, the hardest parts of our lives make for the best art. And I showed her a poem that won this big prize, um, as kind of an illustration of that, or vice versa. I don't remember which came
mhm.
first, but I just keep encountering that again and again. And you know, it's one of those things. It's just like it sucks that we have to go through that, but also it's kind of amazing what comes out of it.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so such is the life of the artist, I suppose.
Hmm.
So here's a interesting question, and I don't know that you'll have an answer to it, but do do you know, or have you ever been in a group of um, artists that like critique their work like a writers group might? Because I know, like in writing, we'll have people will get together and bring writing and say what they did or didn't like. But I've never thought about that for graphic art. Like if people do that.
Yeah, I would stay away from that. I'm very sensitive. I don't do well with critiques or anything like that, honestly. So I just try to create art, and if I'm proud of it and I feel like I did my best, that's all that I can do. All I can do is do my best. And I'm sure there probably is like groups for art critique.
Hmm.
There's my cat.
Oh.
he, he has the zoomies right now, so he's running around.
It's funny because
Uh
I have you in three different windows because of
huh.
how it works, and so I like didn't see it in the one where you're actually talking to me, but I saw it in the delayed
Yeah,
one, and so I was like, oh,
that's hilarious.
like what are you talking about? I don't see a cat. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I feel like it would be hard to be in an art critique group though, because
Mhm.
like to me, when I do graphic art, which is not that much, um, when I finish it, it's done. Like I can't
Yes.
do anything else to it. Like with a poem or a story, I can erase and I can put it back,
Yeah.
and you can't do that as easily
Yeah.
with like paintings.
Uh huh.
But that's an interesting thing to think
Yeah.
about.
Definitely.
All right, well trying to figure out how much time we got, but I'm going to read another. The next three are just going to be excerpts, which was the plan, but I may have to shorten them or move them around. We'll see. And since we've been talking a lot, I'm going to quench my thirst here. And feel free to keep putting questions in the chat box, everybody that's watching. And also wanted to remind you guys to sign up for the newsletter if you haven't done that. I have a monthly newsletter for Red Sweater Press that talks about things that I'm working on, and it has an Author of the Month feature and events that are coming up. Speaking of which, if you guys live in Minnesota, Bree is going to be at the Gustavus Business Fair on September 25th. To sell and sign books. So if you want
Mhm.
to go say hi, that'd be awesome. I won't be there, but she will tell me all about it, I'm sure.
Yep.
And hopefully it will go well. So newsletter, and you guys should subscribe to the YouTube channel. I don't post a whole lot other than these live streams, but when you are subscribed and you have notifications going, then you can know when things like our technical difficulties happen, and it'll notify you when we go live in a different place. Um, which I still gotta. I'm gonna figure that out before my next online event. I don't know when it will be, but I will figure it out. All right. So here we go. This is For All We Know. When Kenny shot Charlie, no one was really sure how to react. It wasn't because it was all that surprising. Kenny had had it out for Charlie since day one. But we didn't know whether to rejoice at the end of the feud or dread whatever was coming next. The bullet hit Charlie in the chest, right beneath the collarbone, on the wrong side. That is, if Kenny had been trying to kill him, anyone would have thought he'd aimed for the heart. Now, there was no chance Kenny could have shot that poorly at a range of 10 feet, but no one could think of a good reason why he would have shot Charlie without intending to kill him. Charlie's a good 4 inches taller than Kenny, and noticeably burlier, too. We figured wounding a guy like that would be a lot like picking a fight with a grizzly bear armed with nothing but a hot branding iron. It just didn't make any sense. Charlie died less than 2 hours later, and we weren't any closer to figuring out why everything unfolded as it did, or what the proper response to the whole thing was, when Kenny showed up at the cop shop, stuck a gun in his mouth, and shot himself right in front of the attendant. Next day, the papers said the desk jockey was no more than a 23-year-old kid, fresh on the job that week, who got scared shitless watching a stranger lose their staring contest by blowing his brains out. We were downright stumped. The whole town was. Kenny was always quiet in school, a skinny blond kid with glasses and straight C's through high school, except for a B- he got in shop class. But when Charlie came to town, it was like a modern-day Wild West cowboy turf war settled in. Charlie had a smile for everyone. Most teachers loved him, and a lot of students did too, with the exception of Kenny, but he probably wasn't the most popular. He wasn't much for sports, except pick up basketball occasionally, and then he got kicked off the tennis team for taking a whiz right outside the court at a match. He never bothered to appeal the ejection. Other than that one offense, he was usually pretty polite, and didn't try to get away with anything, neither. He just seemed like a regular guy. But there was something about him that drove Kenny into such a rage whenever he laid eyes on Big Bear Charlie that anyone could see the steam coming out of his ears from a mile away. Less than a week after the shootings, the papers printed some nonsense about Kenny being bullied as a child, just to confirm the cliches, I guess, but we all knew it had to be deeper than that. The kind of blind hatred Kenny had for Charlie didn't come from a slow build-up of swirlies and getting jumped for lunch money, and I'm sure it wasn't any of that cyberbullying garbage people are going on about these days. Kenny's revulsion seemed unique in the fact that it stayed the same from when he first saw Charlie's face to the day they died, but none of us could believe he was just a psychopath, neither. He came from a good family out in the country with 2 younger siblings, a brother and a sister, with no family history of mental illness or disability. The only criminal record was his great uncle Thythix from when he tried not to pay his taxes and ended up doing it anyway. So where was the motive? For the hatred, not the murder. What made Kenny Kilborn snap? The news reporters asked. Well, they got his 24-year-old sister Sandy to answer some questions on some primetime TV program that puzzled people even more. TV interviewer. How would you describe your older brother, recently deceased? Sandy Kilborn. Dead. Interviewer, flustered. Well, yes, but before that, as your brother, flesh and blood. Sandy picked at her long, unpolished fingernails in serious concentration for a few seconds, then smiled briefly at the camera and said, Flesh and blood he may have been, but my brother Kenny ain't really my brother Kenny. His ma adopted me after Charlie's ma, my ma, decided she didn't want me. Now, as you can imagine, her saying that raised all sorts of questions and quite a bit of scandal that both sets of parents was none too happy to have revealed on television after the deaths of their 30-year-old sons. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Sandy tossed back her straight blonde hair with a flick of her head and flung her arms across the lap of her hot pink dress. Kenny was more of a brother to me than Charlie was, but Charlie was so straight with me I couldn't hold it against him, she said seriously. I handed him my phone number a week after I met him when I was a freshman in high school, and he looked me straight in the face with that sad smile of his and told me I was his sister without even looking at the note. I slapped him good and hard across the face because I thought he was bringing some religious crap in on me, like, you're just my sister in Christ, darlin'. When I found out he was serious, I hit him again and cried my eyes out for 3 weeks straight, but after that we were almost like friends. Casual acquaintances, you know, except that we knew something about each other that hardly anyone else did. But I knew I could never be his sister, and he knew he could never be my brother, and that was that. I already knew how much Kenny hated Charlie, I just never knew why. I wasn't the first one to read into that line about he knew, I knew, we'd never be brother and sister and think, damn it all, they were having ancestral relations, and Kenny was out for revenge against the guy who spoiled his sister. But then we got to thinking how she said, and everyone knew, those boys were deep in the throes of animosity long before Sandy was going gaga over Charlie. Sure, it all could have been a lie. But then a third party, who claimed no strong ties to either of them, showed up and confirmed Sandy's story by saying Charlie would never hook up with a 15-year-old girl at that time, much less his biological sister. Why? Because Charlie Fontaine was screwing the mayor, 10 years his senior, with a husband and 2 kids. How in the world this person found out about the affair was then a mystery, as is why they chose to speak up just then. But the day after that news came out, the source was suddenly impossible to reach, and the mayor was gone without a trace. Needless to say, the whole town was in an uproar, and the gossip was spreading like wildfire, as it always does. A murder-suicide in which the victims are connected by a blonde bombshell plucked out of one family and put in the other, plus the mayor's affair with one of them, a significantly younger man, was too good not to be part of a weekly TV drama. But in the city's haste to find their missing mayor and the press's hurry to cover the story, weeks passed before anyone realized that Kenny's younger brother Jeb had also gone missing. And I will stop there for now.
I love that. That's one of my favorites.
Good.
It's so interesting hearing you read it out
Yeah.
loud instead of me reading it in my own voice to myself, if that makes sense. Yeah, when you read it, it like comes alive, and I can picture my pictures to this story too.
Yay.
That's
That's
so
good.
heartwarming.
Yeah. What was I going to say about that? I don't remember now. Oh, yeah. So, I don't know who all we have in the audience here. People who are commenting, I don't think this is too much of a concern, but I did intend to give a little bit of a warning since there's more language in this one, and also, it is talking about somebody getting shot in the face right in the beginning. So, my bad for not warning people about that. But anyway, let's see. We got a little bit. I think I'm gonna have to skip one of them, but that's okay. So, you guys will just have to come to another thing when I schedule that other thing, because I don't know when I'm going to have another reading. But Lakshman was asking about how to just subscribe to the newsletter. So if you guys go to the Red Sweater Press website, just redsweaterpress.com, if it's the first time you've been there, there should be a pop-up. I don't know if the pop-up shows up if you've X'd it out before, but you can also scroll down to the bottom on any page, and there's a box to enter your email address. But it's also on my Kate Bucksbaum website. So if you go to katebucksbaum.com, it's at the top of the homepage. That's another way to subscribe. But let's see a couple more questions. So I guess I will just combine these. So what was the most fun part of this project for you, and what did you learn from the experience?
The most fun part was getting the actual book in the mail and like showing it off to everyone. And I would just like carry it around like, I drew that. You see that picture there? Yeah, I drew it. You see this picture in the back? Yep, that's me. You see that about me page? Oh, it's me.
I
And
love that.
I have two copies, and one I sleep with like right next to my bed. The first nights that I had it, I slept with it under my pillow, like directly under my pillow. And the other one I keep in my purse with me at all times so I can whip it out and be like, yeah, I drew that. I'm an illustrator now. So
That's
yeah.
right, you are.
Yeah. It's super
Yeah,
fun.
so what do you think? I mean,
Yeah.
would you not necessarily for me, because I don't know what I'm gonna put out next, but um do you think you would want to do an illustration project again? Would you be
Yes. hmm
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to illustrate more books, and I also want to create a children's book too. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, I was thinking I was gonna ask about that too. So, but that one you think you might want to write that yourself too?
I think so. Yeah.
hmm
hmm
Yeah, well, if you need connections, I will tell you the people that I know, because I
Yeah.
don't publish children's books, but I know people who do.
hmm
um, so let's see, what else do we need to remind people? Um, I should check if there's any other emails that I need to look at. Okay. So I think still a couple more people could get free shipping if they buy it now in the next like 10 minutes. So if you haven't bought one yet, if you're on the fence, I don't know why you're on the fence, but go get one and you can have free shipping. And also, I should refresh this. And also, I needed to answer Brenda's question. So, Brenda, books. So technically, if we think about like start to finish of like first story to now, it's been 10, 11 years. So I think if I had been thinking that direction more of publishing short stories when I graduated from college, uh, and doing it myself, it may have happened sooner. But after Gustavus, I was reporting, so I was doing that kind of writing, which is very different, and didn't, wasn't really in the right mindset. And then I ended up doing poetry, and now we're here, coming back to it, as I'm. Oh, excuse me. Um, and mugs. So that's what I was checking: is who gets the mug. Jimmy gets a mug. Okay, so Jimmy, you need to email me and tell me which one you want, the latte mug or this mug. I will send it to you. And oh, people who pre-ordered, I sent those out today. So if you bought the book before today, or before the launch, I sent those out today. So those should be getting there in a few weeks. And I think I will go ahead and do our last reading here from the birthday picture, because we gotta cover that one. And originally it was about 9 minutes. I don't know if I will read that whole excerpt. We will see. Oh, hey, look, Obi's here. Hi, Obi. Okie dokie. The birthday picture. Don't spend too much time up there, Philip, his wife calls from below. We have to be at church in an hour. Won't be long, he says, climbing the ladder. Just need to find the one picture. In the attic, Philip flicks a switch and waits a second or two for the overhead bulb to light the room. Having cleaned most of the house in preparation for the move, only a few boxes remain. He kneels before the white cardboard one with the handles and the word pictures scrawled on top in his wife's hurried handwriting, then removes the lid to reveal 5 leather-bound photo albums of varying thicknesses. As he tries to remove all of them at once, loose photos scatter about the floor and back into the box. Ah, Christ, he mutters, settling the books down. He begins to flip over the fallen photos, moved by the associated memories. Philip spies one of himself and his brother Andrew, taken at Andrew's university graduation ceremony, and smiles. It shows one of the few occasions they have been caught on film, grinning at the same time. He turns over another, this one more recent, a shot of him and his wife on their honeymoon in Hawaii. It had been so cliché, but they had loved it. Hearing his wife's reminder not to dawdle in his head, Philip swipes the remaining photos off the floorboards and into the album at the top of the stack without looking at them. A large old print falls again, landing face up. Faces up, really, as it includes several Philip hasn't seen for a very long time. In fact, he had begun to doubt the picture existed. You know, things might go more quickly if I help, says Philip's wife, poking her head through the hatch behind him. He doesn't respond, possibly because he doesn't hear. Either way, he's transfixed by the photo in front of him. Philip? He answers, without looking up. His wife climbs the rest of the way into the attic and leans over him. Is that you? She asks, pointing to the boy in the kilt. Philip smiles, but does not take his eyes off the photo. Yep. If his wife finds it humorous, she hides it well. What was the occasion? She asks. My birthday, he says, almost apologetic. Really? His wife is surprised. Who are all those people? I hardly recognize any of them. Philip looks up at her. How much time did you say we had? The year is 1928, and Van P. Marlowe is 15 again. As he yanks his burgundy stockings over his just sprouting leg hair and up to his knees, he can't believe he's wearing a kilt. In fact, Van thinks he is most definitely dressed like a girl, despite his great-aunt Winifred's insistence to the contrary. Her encouragement for Van to get in touch with his Scottish roots, hers, goes unappreciated as he shoves his feet into the buckled shoes, which are not only hideous, in his opinion, but also uncomfortably snug. As it has been a full year since the birthday on which Van received the outfit, the shoes cannot be expected to fit the same as they might have on the day of purchase. Too bad he assumed he would never have to do so much as try them on. Great Aunt Winifred calls to him again from the stairwell, and through the inch-wide gap between his bedroom door and its frame, he can hear the polite smile in her voice, along with the threat lurking behind it. Hurry now, Vanny. Wouldn't want to keep our friends and relatives waiting. Tell them they can start without me, Van challenges, failing to hide the irritation in his voice as he struggles with the topmost button on his waistcoat. Oh, but everyone is anticipating a photograph of you in the traditional attire, Winifred replies sweetly. In a later era, Van might be reminded of artificially flavored cough syrup. Well, if it weren't for this blasted attire, the brass button remains unmanageable, I would already be down there, Van grumbles. Then, further under his breath, you can't have it both ways. Winifred says nothing. Van can picture her frowning, her wrinkled hands on her wide hips. After another moment, she grunts in disapproval and turns and lumbers back down to the sitting room. Glad to be left alone in his itchy woolen misery for just a bit longer, Van seizes the moment to convince himself that no one of special importance, or intent on blackmailing him, will be waiting downstairs, so he might as well endure it, just for one night. He shoves the button as hard as he can into the microscopic hole in which it allegedly fits, only to have it pop right off and roll onto the dirty white carpet at his feet. Van picks up the liberated button, unaware of his bare backside showing as he bends down, and examines the damage. He stares at the space between the button and the snapped thread, hanging limply where the button used to be, spits out an ugh, and throws the button back on the floor. Stupid jockey outfit, Van mutters in disgust. Not even Scottish. He isn't particularly wrong in his statement. Van's great-great-grandfather may have been Scottish, causing quite a scandal when he married Great Aunt Winifred's Welsh mother, but for the Marlowes, England was all they'd ever known, and America is the New England. Van's brother Andrew is passing time in the parlor with 16-year-old Lizzie Langdon, who is repeatedly flattening the skirt of her pale yellow dress and refluffing it nervously. As Miss Langdon shifts uncomfortably on the green striped settee next to the flirtatious boy, adults long past mere legality pay them no heed. Under the guise of socializing, wrinkled hands with age spots and hidden wedding rings pick at finger food with less than honorable intentions. Middle age has done the children's family friends and relatives in, each one now seeking their own escape. Take Mildred, for example. 40 years old and 90 pounds heavier than when she married almost 2 decades ago, her pearled neck bulges as she mechanically swallows her 5th deviled egg of the evening. It's been 20 minutes since she arrived at the party. Then there's Mr. Collier, 57 and sifting through the desperate housewives in the room with a glass of champagne and a rented tuxedo, feigning the kind of wealth that leads astray. Rumors of such wealth instigating fleeting trysts at best and inciting murder at worst come and go every year in the suburbs of New Hampshire. Anna Petropolov, in her tight emerald gown, lurks in the corner sipping punch. Her deception leaves her past unnoticed. Looking just the part of the seductive mistress, she effortlessly stirs up jealousy in the wives of the men she passes by, leaving more timid women fearfully clutching their husbands' arms. Anna is just the type to attract Mr. Collier's attention, except that he and Mrs. Marlowe alone, in the gaggle of partygoers, already know the secret of her preferences. As it stands, Anna Petropolov's presence is the only physical evidence of Susan Marlowe's midlife crisis, which occurred 3 years earlier. But Susan is not thinking about that. She's chatting, as they say, with a quiet couple dressed in pale hues near the door. These are 2 of her high school friends from Kent, John and Patricia, who have made the journey across the pond for Van's birthday party. Not that Van has so much as met the couple before, but his 15th birthday happens to be the first big event Susan Marlowe has hosted since her husband Lionel's disappearance 21 months ago. John and Patricia are here for moral support, though they do not mention it, and instead regale their old friend with tales from home. Oblivious to all of this, Andrew continues to pursue Lizzie Langdon, who continues to ignore his pursuits, her thoughts drifting to the boy upstairs, 1 year her junior. Van is hardly the athletic charmer his brother is, but there was that one time at Hadley Park last summer. What happened at Hadley Park? Philip's wife inquires, her long hair spilling over his shoulder. He blushes. She raises her eyebrows. It was nothing, Philip says hurriedly. Just a teenage encounter. Really? She says doubtfully, a playful spark in her eye. Philip smiles sheepishly. Van is hesitating at the top of the stairs, listening for signs that the party is going on without him, that the greatest number of attendees are engaged in conversations or pursuits that would draw their attention elsewhere. Satisfied to the highest degree possible in his nervousness, Van takes a deep breath and begins his descent. 3 steps from the landing, Van spots the yellow-haired girl on the settee and freezes. His hand goes clammy on the polished railing, and the color drains from his face. The tassels on his cap are still swinging, the instinct to flee overwhelming, but it's too late. Lizzie Langdon looks up and bites her lip to keep from laughing. This does not escape Andrew's attention, as he looks for the cause of his object's sudden change in expression, and locks eyes with his younger brother. There's no stopping the ensuing guffaw. "Why, you look like a ripe piece of Scottish work, don't you?" Andrew mocks between hoots of laughter. Before Van has a chance to stammer out a comeback that would surely be flouted by another from his brother, the doorbell rings, and the conversation falls to a quiet mumble. All eyes turn toward the door. "Wonder who that could be?" Van's mother addresses the crowd with a nervous smile as she crosses the room, her taupe heels clacking loudly on the parquet floor. The murmuring picks up, then ceases as Mrs. Marlowe turns the brass knob and opens the door. "Charles!" And you'll have to read the rest on your own. So, let's see. Where's my camera? It's not here. I am missing a window. Oh, I was trying to show people that picture of Charles. Once again, have to put it on my face. Now everything's blurry. Well, I tried. You guys will have to buy the book to see it. Or if you get the newsletter, then you have already seen that picture. Well, we are at 7:06, so not bad considering the late start.
Mhm.
Why don't we go ahead and consider one last question. What goals do you have for yourself as an artist?
Let's see. I want to create a website. That's like number one. It's been on my to-do list like for a really long time, but it's going to happen really soon. I'm gonna make a website. I want to create art that people can buy on my website as well. I want to make like notebooks, keychains, prints that people can buy. And I'm not sure exactly what subject I want my kind of theme to be, but I can also do custom work as well. I want to enter in more art shows and get more involved in the Anoka community. um, I used to live in Maple Grove, so I was involved in the Maple Grove Art Center. So I want to get plugged in here. I want to illustrate more books, like I said. I want to make a children's book. Let's see. I had a goal to do one art project, so a painting or drawing per week every for a full year. So one art project for every week for a full year. So I'm like working out my motivation to do that as well. I'm an artist, I procrastinate. That is what it is, and I get busy too. So I also want to make a coloring book. I also want to make a set of oracle cards with my own drawings on them. And I want to make a cartoon about cats.
Nice. Well, that is a long list of really
Yeah.
epic goals. I am excited to see you achieve those because I know you will.
Yeah.
Um, Definitely stoked for the coloring book. Definitely do that. I
Mhm.
want that. What about Inktober this year? Do you think you're gonna do it?
I will attempt it. I tried to get last year as well, but I was busy working on these illustrations
Yeah.
that I didn't have that much time. But this year, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna go all for it. Very spooky, very creepy, which is like my vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I might
Yeah.
join you some days. I'm definitely not gonna attempt every day, but I
Mhm.
think last year was the first year that I did it, maybe. Well, no, because I did it twice and I didn't finish it either time. But that's fine because I did
Yeah.
more than I would have done otherwise, which is I think is the point. Um,
Yep.
but anyway, I guess we'll wrap it up here. Thank you for coming. Thank you
Yeah.
to all our guests for coming. Remember that if you're local to Alaska, the signing at Black Birch Books is this Saturday at noon, from noon to 2. And if you're in Minnesota, go see Bree at Gustavus in St. Peter on September 25th during homecoming, where she'll be selling some books. And she'll have my poetry there too. So if you want to, or if you're only there for her, that's fine. If you only want her images, that's cool. I totally get it. Um, yeah, so the website's always open for orders if you decide later that you want to order a copy of the book or a different book for people. I have, if anybody's interested, I think, a bag and those mugs listed for purchase if anybody wants me to make more. Right now, there are only those two in existence, but if people want more, they can order them from there. And I think. Oh, last thing is when you guys do read the book, please review it on Goodreads or on Amazon or both, because those reviews do help people to find it and check it out. So we would really appreciate that. And I think that's it. Any closing remarks from the illustrator?
I want to say thank you to everyone that's also watching online after the live event, because it's 9 to 10 here in Minnesota, so a lot of my friends are still asleep already. So thanks everyone for watching. I appreciate all of you.
Yes, thank you to everyone who watches at any time.
Yes, exactly.
All right. See you all
Awesome.
next time.